Welcome back to Mac Music Review. Before we hop into the review, just want to say there's going to be some stuff down in the description if you're interested in how the channel works and all that good stuff down in the description. Today, we're going to be looking at the album Codes and Keys by Death Cab for Cutie. This album right here. Codes and Keys is the first of Death Cab for Cutie's 2010 albums. It's also their first album with Atlantic Recordings. It's their first major label album. I don't think they were signed to a big label company before Atlantic Recordings. I know that Atlantic Recordings, even so, Atlantic Recordings was definitely the biggest thing they've been signed to, if they've been signed to anything else before. And it's major label. This album has 11 songs on it. It's definitely a lot longer than it feels longer than their other albums. With 11 songs, they're all full-length songs, and the song Unobstructed Views is 6 minutes long. There are no really short songs on this album, so there's a lot of music to digest on this album. There's a lot to hear on this album. In terms of commercial and critical reception, this is not the lowest rated Death Cab for Cutie album. In fact, on Metacritic, it's the highest rated album of the 2010s, even though that's not saying much, because it's by 1 or 2 points, by 1 or 2 critic points above the other two albums. But the fans, in terms of fan reception, this is known as the worst album. When Death Cab for Cutie fans rank albums and say best worst album, this is always their worst album. This is almost always what they say is the worst album. Because on this album, the focus seems to shift from the lyrics. Because on Narrow Stairs, the album that came before this, it was very lyrical. This album is very musical. The big focus is on the music and the sound and the way the songs are made and the way the songs sound. And the lyrics really play second fiddle to the music. This album really is a musical experience rather than a lyrical experience. And I think for that reason, a lot of fans didn't, because a lot of what Death Cab for Cutie is really emotional songwriting, and you don't really have much of that on this album. And so in that way, it's a unique album in their discography. Worth noting, one of the most interesting things about the music on this album is a lot of the singing on this album sounds like it's kind of muffled. Sung through not like a gramophone, not that muffled, but it sounds kind of muffled by the music and kind of sounds like it has a muffler on it. This is especially seen in songs like Portable Television and Unobstructed Views. Not Portable Television, Unobstructed Views, the singing sounds like that. Some Boys also has this effect, and it's kind of interesting. I'm not really sure why that is, but... And then the music on this album, a lot of it is really big and epic. Some of it is very light and upbeat. Actually, very little of it is light and upbeat. The song Portable Television has this really upbeat piano music, and then Stay Young, Go Dancing is a very upbeat, merry tune. Very, very happy. And then Home is a Fire is another one that's more on the upbeat side, but not super duper upbeat. And then you have some other songs on this album which are really long and drawn out, like Unobstructed Views or St. Peter's Cathedral, and a bunch of these songs that come to this crazy moment, explosion of music and explosion of epicness that they shoot for, like Unobstructed Views, St. Peter's Cathedral, Codes and Keys, Doors Unlocked and Opened. All these songs lead up to a moment, lead up to a big grand musical moment that's supposed to be awesome. And that's a lot of the songs in this album, and a lot of these songs just have piano music, this really cool piano music, and a few other effects, but mostly piano, with a edited, layered, digitally polished piano. This album occasionally has some pretty ambitious music. It tries to hit some big moments, and it totally nails it. There's a plane. There's always something. There's always something. This album, totally nails it again and again and again. This album actually has a streak of great songs. Right after Codes and Keys, the great songs just keep on coming. In fact, Home is a Fire is still a good song. It's not as high quality as the rest of as most of the songs on this album. Codes and Keys is one of the best title tracks I can think of off the top of my head. The piano is awesome on that song. Trying to see my notes. Oh, it has piano, it has violin, strings, and the climax is just amazing. The song Some Boys also has really good music, and some lyrics that are actually reminiscent of Tiny Vessels from Transatlanticism, talking about how about how guys take advantage of girls and stuff. And it's actually has some pretty good lyrics. It's a good song. And then you have songs like Doors Unlocked and Opened, which isn't as good, because the lyrics are kind of obscure on that song, and that's one of the weak parts about it. But the music is awesome. It's like Codes and Keys. It hits this crazy climax, and it is just awesome. You Are a Tourist. That one also sounds really good. Unobstructed Views. This is one of the most experimental, risky songs I think Death Cab has done, because it's like 6 minutes long. It's like 4 minutes of music and then 2 minutes of brief lyrics, and it's awesome. The payoff is amazing, and it just sounds awesome at the end of this song. Just so good. Monday Morning. When I first listened to this album, this was the only song I listened to. Like this, I picked this song out, put it on my playlist, and didn't listen to the rest. And then I ended up liking like the whole album. But Monday Morning has some of the coolest music on this album. Some of the most like danceable, like cool music. It's really something. It sounds really cool. And then Portable Television, like I said, very upbeat track. It works great. It just sounds really good. Underneath the Sycamore, that's a good one. It's just a good song. Not a lot to say. Lyrics are good. Music is good. It's just a good song. St. Peter's Cathedral has this amazing contrast in the lyrics of looking at a cathedral and saying, look how beautiful this is. It's also really, really sad. So I think the sad songwriting comes in on this song, but Benjamin Gibbard is observing how beautiful a cathedral is, a church, a place of worship, a place associated with Christianity and Catholicism. He sees it, and then he says, there's nothing past this, meaning there's no afterlife. This is beautiful, but there's nothing past this. So it's kind of ironic because it's a church, Christianity says there's an afterlife, and he's like, there's nothing past this. So it's amazing contrast, really good lyrics on that song. The only song on this thing that isn't great, that I really don't love, is Stay Young, Go Dancing. I also don't think Home is a Fire is as good as the other songs on this album. Besides those two songs, this album is pretty great. This thing is really, really impressive. This album's just, the music alone just sounds really, really good. The lyrics on this album are a little bit abstract. They're a little bit obscure, a little bit hard to interpret, and more than a little bit poetic. And that's the reason that some people don't get behind this album, is because when they listen to a Death Cab album, they're listening to the lyrics and they really identify with these sad lyrics. And this album really doesn't have much of that. It's mostly just poetic. And the lyrics serve as a vehicle to support the music. And the music is amazing. The music is great on this album. So, I love this album. It's great. It's honestly easily one of the best Death Cab for Cutie albums. I'm going to give this thing a 4.25 out of 5. What do you think of Codes and Keys? I think this is a pretty solid album. It's pretty good. In fact, it's better than that. This is a great album. Amazing music. I can totally understand where fans are coming from. People that don't like this album. But guys, open your eyes to this music. Open your ears. Because this thing sounds amazing. I mean, just awesome, epic music. And music that just really well made, really well produced. This is a cool album. It's really good.